So, the zero bug policy. Obviously, this is like avionics, right? The kind of software which controls the flight of aircraft. Clearly, it needs to have pretty much no bugs. Because if there are any bugs, then that means planes might crash. So if we just do that, we just need to have some very clear requirements, lots of legislation. We can work in a language like Spark Adder that we can do formal testing in and verification, maybe some independent review. And then 100% unit test coverage, definitely. Lots of integration tests, black box testing, acceptance testing. And I'm assured by Wikipedia it should only take about 15% longer than regular development practices. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that 15% sounds a little bit on the low side. So to start off with, let's get something clear. The zero bug policy is absolutely not about having zero bugs in our software. We all know that that's a tad unrealistic. What it is a way of managing the bugs that you do know about to make sure that you don't end up buried up to your eyeballs in months or even sometimes years old bugs. It's pretty simple, really. Can be boiled down to this diagram. So effectively every bug that comes in, you ask the simple question, should we actually fix this? Do we care enough about it to fix it? And if not, you just delete it. Don't bother with it anymore. If you do want to fix it, you then ask yourself the slightly trickier question of, will we actually prioritize this right now? If you can prioritize it right now, then you go ahead and you fix it right away. You don't say, we'll fix it in 2 weeks, we'll fix it next sprint or in a month or whatever. You do it now. Because if it's not important enough for you to prioritize right now, chances are it's never going to become important enough to do in the future. So you can just delete it if not. If it's important enough, it will come back again. To take a step back from kind of software for a minute, another way of looking at it is, say, a to-do list that you might have. So you might have a bunch of chores or home improvements or something like that that you might want to do. Say, you want to get your house nice and spick and span. But then life gets in the way, and then 6 months down the line, the skirting boards in the spare room kind of still haven't been painted. And rather than beating yourself up about the fact that you haven't done that, just admit that actually it's not that important right now and just cross it off the list. But then obviously, if your partner drops the bombshell that your mother and father-in-law are coming to visit for the weekend, and actually, they're going to need the spare bedroom, and mother-in-law's a little bit of a neat freak or whatever it might be, then all of a sudden, maybe it is important enough for you to prioritize getting those skirting boards painted so that they've got somewhere nice to stay. As I said, if it is important enough, it will come back again.
So going back to software, another way of looking at it is simply being honest with ourselves about which bugs we will fix and which we won't. So clearly there are certain kinds of bugs which we will fix because we know they're important. We clearly know right now that they're the things we're going to work on, so that's great. We're pretty clear on those. There's also some categories of bugs which clearly we have no chance of fixing. They're going to be things which are sort of bizarre edge cases. It doesn't work in IE6 and we don't care. The performance is bad if your stored procedures are 1 million lines long. Okay, we're not going to fix those things. They're just too edge casey, or we just don't care about supporting that platform or whatever. That's great. We're going to close them anyway. But there's this whole section of bugs in the middle where we say to ourselves, yeah, it sort of would be nice to fix this. It seems like something it should do, but it's not really a very high priority, so we just put them in a backlog. And they will go there to die. We will maybe, in like a year's time, there'll be a 2-hour meeting where you'll groom the backlog and you'll say, all these things we raised, yeah, we have to close them now because we're never going to get around to them. But I'm sure you're thinking at this point, that's all well and good, but surely this could never work on my team. Well, we're here representing 2 teams from Redgate who are in fact using a zero bug policy and have been seeing good results from it in our teams. So obviously, I'm from SQL Clone, so one of Redgate's newer products. We have a couple of hundred users. It's a relatively sort of high-cost product, so we want to give our customers a good experience. And so we've sort of fairly naturally been following this kind of process, but we've formalized it at the start of the year. So what we do basically is when we get an escalation in from support, or indeed we notice a defect ourselves, we do some investigation into it to try to find the root cause. And then if we think that's something which the product should do and we can fix, then we just add it to our to-do column, and it's one of the next things we work on. There are, of course, cases where that's not the case because it's either something which we don't feel we can really support right now. It's like a platform or some SQL Server feature which we can't support, like SANs, some particular ones can be problems for us. Then we just say to the customer, sorry, we can't fix this right now, and we acknowledge the limitation. And that might become a feature request in the future. Perhaps if we hear it enough, then we might come back to it and see if we can solve this problem. But otherwise, it's just something we can't do right now, and we're honest about that to the customer.
So obviously, as Chris has just described there, it's quite easy to follow a zero bug policy when you're working with kind of quite a small user base. But some of you might be thinking, maybe I'm working on a product with 10,000 users or 20,000. There's no way it's going to scale to a user base like that. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I work on SQL Prompt, which has just shy of 80,000 monthly active users, and we've recently switched to a zero bug policy as well. So we don't quite follow it to the T. We've tweaked it a little bit just to fit in better with our process. So rather than committing to fixing bugs, absolutely as soon as they come in and we say we're going to fix them, what we do is we add them to planning, and then every 2 weeks in a sprint planning or whatever, we'll try and prioritize the bugs that we've got and then go ahead and fixing them. And then if we don't manage to prioritize those, what we do is we give ourselves 30 days. And if we haven't prioritized a bug by then, we just say, you know what, unless something changes, we're never going to prioritize this in the future. So rather than building up a big backlog again, which we used to have 80 bugs, we've now got 4, I think. We just close it. We give a customer a valid reason as to why we've closed it. We explain that it's not high enough priority for us. And effectively, we just go from there. So we've noticed a bunch of really, really big advantages of working with a zero bug policy, both for development teams and for customers. So the first of those is no more triage meetings. Yep, no more triage meetings. I'm sure many of you have kind of suffered through a meeting in a stuffy room, probably Jellyfish or somewhere like that, where you spend an hour and a half staring at a Jira backlog of 50 bugs going, are we ever really going to get to that? You don't really have that problem anymore. You just deal with each bug as it comes in and deal with it right away. Simple.
And for customers, it means that when we do get fixes out, they're timely. So if we tell to the customer, oh yeah, we're going to fix that, and it goes on a backlog somewhere, and then maybe if they're really lucky in like 6 months' time we get round to it, then do they even care at this point? And they've probably either just forgotten about it, or they're using a workaround, or perhaps they've even given up using your software entirely because you're never going to fix the issue, clearly. So it's very lucky if they even notice you fixed it at all. Whereas if you say either, if we're not going to fix it, we're going to fix it now, that means that we usually get fixes out to customers within like a week if we can, maybe even a day, but certainly within a month or so of them reporting it. So they get a much better experience when they do get their bugs fixed. They get them when it actually matters.
Another big advantage for a dev team is easier prioritization. So, when your bugs come in, you don't have to faff about trying to decide which of the 30 are we going to do. This time, maybe you're going to try and bring in 3 or 4. If you're working in sprints, as I know some teams are, you're effectively at each sprint planning, you just say, okay, which bugs are we going to bring in? All of the open ones, and however many that is, they come in and you fit the rest of your work around that so that you can get yourself back to 0 bugs. If you're working in a more kind of pull-based Kanban style system, I know a couple of teams at Redgate are effectively, yes, Chris is doing that. Any bugs that come in that you say you want to fix and you're going to prioritize fixing, they just go straight onto your to-do column so that a dev can start working on them as soon as possible. Easy.
Another big advantage for customers is that they have an honest interaction with the dev team. So at the moment, there'll be lots of customers who will raise an issue and then we'll tell them, oh yeah, we're totally going to fix it. We've logged a bug report for it and the dev team will be on it soon. And then we don't fix it. And so we've just lied. And that really isn't something we want to be doing. On the other hand, if we are honest with our customers and explain the process we've gone through and the decisions we make and the reasons why we've made them, then I think in many cases they'll actually be able to empathize with us. Obviously, many of our customers are developers themselves, and they'll know that software can't be entirely bug-free, and you have to make hard choices sometimes. And By being honest, we'll be able to tell them if there are any workarounds or what they could do about it, and they'll have the information they need to go forward in the future. And whether that's they actually get their bug fixed or not, at least we'll have been honest with them and have had a genuine interaction with a real person and not just an endless pit that bugs fall into and you never come out from.
So yeah, we had a really great example of this recently on SQL Prompt. So we had a bug come in and we went and did a quick investigation on it, and we decided to close it. So we were completely transparent, or jellyfish if you prefer, with our customer. We said, we probably could fix this, but given the area of code that it's in, there's quite a large chance that it might introduce further issues, and it is a little bit edge case already, so we're not considering it high priority. And I'm going to show you in a second what he said. Prior warning, I did not write this. It was not written by a PR department. This is a word-for-word copy quote from that customer.
Thank you for letting me know that. In response to your feedback, I'm thinking that your team's decision is reasonable if the implementation of the fix may trigger further unforeseen issues. Thank you for taking time on this.
So yeah, you might think that, if you go ahead and start closing a load of bugs, that all of your customers are going to get really ranty and angry, and Russell will start coming over and saying, why are you being mean to all the customers? But actually, that's not necessarily the case. If you're honest with them, a lot of the time, they're really, really understanding. So moving it forward to the kind of theme of Level Up 2019, which is the future of product development, how might a zero bug policy work with a subscription model? So the first thing to say is that actually SQL Prompt is already on a subscription model. It's just on a really bloody long renewal cycle of 3 years rather than the more traditional 1 month or so that you might experience with a service such as Netflix. So if our model was to change and we would no longer get that 3 years support and upgrades money from a customer as soon as they sign on the dotted line, we would then have to focus on giving those customers as good an experience as possible in every interaction that they have with us as a company. Obviously, we already endeavor to do that currently, but with a shorter renewal cycle, it's even more critical. If we respond to a customer who reports their bug promptly and then fix their bug quickly, obviously, then they're going to be really, really happy because they've had honest interaction, they've got a quick fix out, and on they go. For those customers who we say, actually, sorry, but we're not going to fix this bug at the moment, that might not be the answer they want, but at least they've got closure and hopefully they can move on. If they severely disagree with our decision, and maybe they think it's a higher priority bug than we've said it is, then we are all ears to be proven wrong, and if they can make that argument, then we will reprioritize it. This is great because you can spot dissatisfaction among your customers much earlier. So rather than kind of closing a bug and then sort of 2.5 years later, one of the guys from the renewals department rings up and then finds out that that guy is still ticked off because you didn't fix his bug back in 2017 or whatever it might be, then the quicker you can get that feedback, you can act on it, and you can help reduce customer churn, which obviously is critical for a subscription model. We had another really good example of this recently. So we had a bug come in that we decided to close. That customer came back to us saying, actually, this is a critical bug for us, and it's making it really difficult for us to justify upgrading to the latest version of SQL Prompt because it makes it risky for us to use. And he also complained that they hadn't heard anything back from us for about a month and a half. So this was a bug that was around kind of before we moved to a zero bug policy. But since we've moved to it, we've tried to respond much quicker. We've actually gone ahead and reevaluated this. It turns out we actually made a mistake on the prioritization, that it actually was high priority rather than kind of a low or a medium. So that's been brought in, and we'll be fixing it imminently.
So in summary, a zero bug policy is really about having timely and honest interactions with our customers and indeed ourselves. So if we're timely, that means that we don't end up saying, oh, we'll get back to these things one day, 1 month, who knows, and then end up having these huge backlogs of bugs. And the fixes we do get out to customers, because they are indeed timely, reach the customers when they care, and so they get a great experience working with us. Being honest with ourselves, we don't saddle ourselves with the guilt of having hundreds of bugs that we promised we would get around to fixing, except we never actually will. And then by being honest with our customers, we give them the information they need to make the decisions and, again, develop a better relationship with our customers and increase trust. So we think that timely and honest interactions are really the key to having happy customers and happy dev teams.
So yeah, so that's about all we came here to say about the zero bug policy. Obviously, we're both very big proponents of zero bug policies. So if you feel like it's something that you'd be interested in trying on your team, that it might help solve some of the headaches that you're maybe having with support, feel free to come chat to us either during the rest of the day or at any point while we're at Redgate. But we'd like to open it up now to any questions. Thank you.